My name is Nicola Ruflin. I work for Elastic as a software engineer. And a few more details about me. If you want to reach me online or find me online at Ruflin on GitHub, on Twitter. I work for Elastic for more than 4 years now, almost 4.5. I live in Switzerland, close to Zurich. So that's the cool part about this virtual meetups. They can happen from anywhere without needing to travel. I'm a co-creator of FileBeat and MetricBeat, but as usual, it's always a team effort. And I'm now part of observability through Drive Forward with this vision around bringing logs, metrics, traces together. I'm also an organizer of Elastic meetups, but in Switzerland, Zurich, Basel, Bern. I run quite a few meetups there, but obviously that's a bit different from that virtual meetup, so I'm more than happy to be able to join that. And I have 3 kids. Normally, that's not on my list of introducing myself, but you're going to see later in the talk why this is relevant for the talk today. So my talk today is not technical. It's really about the culture and the company and how we work. I normally do technical talks, so doing this kind of talk is kind of new. So let's see how it goes. So normally when I talk about this, I ask people directly and they can raise hands. As it's a virtual meetup, I really want to encourage you to answer these questions for yourself and think about it afterwards during the presentation, what it means. So who of you is actually working from home? And by home, I mean all the time, from the place you live, the same place you sleep, you cook. Who's working from there all the time, all of the week? Who's working from a co-working space? Like, you don't go to an office where necessarily the workers from the same company are. You go to a place where other workers are. They probably are from a similar field, but it's you alone in that co-working space, and you just get your place. And who is working from an office? You could go to a place from your company every day. All the others come there. Yeah, you spend most of your day there. You go there in the morning, you come back in the evening, or whatever time zones you have. And then who can work from home 1 day a week? Who can work from home 2 days a week? Who can work from home 3 days a week? So you're going to see later on in the talk why it's relevant. So a little bit about the agenda today. I'm going to start about how Elastic started to be distributed, because most companies that are created are not distributed by nature. What our shared values and learnings are, day of an Elastician, basically my day, my experience, what tooling we use, and a quick note on how we do hiring and onboarding. Let's start with the company itself. The company, for the ones that are new to Elastic, the company Elastic is the company that builds the Elastic stack. And the most common service we build is, common known service we build is probably Elasticsearch, which is our storage layer. Here in the middle, we have Kibana on top, which is the UI layer. And we have the ingestion tool, Beats, our edge shippers for logs and metrics, audit data, and Logstash, which has many inputs and outputs that allows you to do complex data processing. All this stack is also available as a SaaS solution on the cloud. You can run it on-prem or on Kubernetes, but as we're open source, you can always download it, all these tools, just start them up and use them. So that is the software we built, and that is actually my most technical slide today. I'm going to show some numbers in my slides, and as it's always with numbers, I only trust the numbers I made up myself. Many of these numbers are probably have slightly changed in the meantime since I created these slides, but important about the numbers is more the ratio they're in than the exact figures. So talking about stats and numbers, by now we're more than 1,000 Elasticians across the whole world. We cover more than 37 countries. Just think about this, what it means to be in 37 different countries. We have more than 30 languages, so that directly tells you most of us, or a majority, is not a native English speaker. English is kind of our default communication language. Obviously, if you talk to some more local people, you can use your local language, but emails, GitHub issues, common communication, it's all in English, but most of us, like me, are not native speakers. We have more than 19 time zones. There are just a few missing. But we have more than 16 offices. We also have offices. I work full-time from home, but we have some offices across the globe, be it a co-working space that we rent out or some dedicated offices. I'm pretty sure this number changed by now and all of them increased. So how did Elastic start to be distributed as a company? And from my perspective, it all starts with the founders, Uri, Shai, Simon, Steven. These are the 4 founders. They started the company and they started distributed. They didn't have a shared office space initially. Simon worked from Germany, Shai worked from Amsterdam. So they were from the beginning distributed, and it was based on Elasticsearch. The project was an open source project. It was already a community involved. And also the first hires, many collaborators to Elasticsearch itself, or clients collaborate, were distributed across the world, and they joined the company. So the company was from day one distributed and not centralized. And Elastic as a distributed company has a few aspects to it I want to mention. It is the most important for me, it's distributed and not remote. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of companies that allow remote workers. There is a headquarters. Some people work from their place, can work 2 days a week remote. But in the end, if there is a very important meeting, if you need to make an important decision, often these people are flown in, or a decision gets made in that office, in that time zone. All the important meetings are going to happen in the time zone of the headquarters. So that is different at Elastic. Elastic itself is really a distributed and not a remote company. And I also see that Elastic works kind of like a distributed system. Horizontal scaling is always a criteria for a distributed system. I think one part here is about decision making. Our decision making is horizontal scalable because pretty often it's happening asynchronous in emails. So what this means is you can cover all the time zones. You wake up, you trigger a suggestion for a decision. People wake up later, they can chime in. And so many decisions can happen in parallel. They happen in emails and GitHub issues. What it implies is sometimes decisions take longer. So if you cannot make a decision immediately, because in most cases, you're not able to pull in all the stakeholders because one of them is Australia, the other one is on the East Coast of the US, so that they don't have overlapping time zones. So it's going to happen per email. So decisions are going to take sometimes at least 24 hours or more, or a week. But I think in the end, it actually leads to better decisions overall, because people can think about decisions on their own term. How often did it happen to you? You went out of a meeting and where you made a decision, and 5 minutes after something comes to your mind, oh, I forgot to mention that. That would have changed the decision. So perhaps some of the decisions are made slower at Elastic, but when they're made, they persist for much longer, from my perspective. And as many decisions happen in parallel, it's not that fewer decisions happen. Also, the other part is we have a transaction log, like many distributed database for decision. It's called emails and GitHub issues. So you go on vacation, you come back, and you see a decision, you can follow the progress of this decision based on an email thread or a GitHub issue. So you know the pros and cons of the arguments that were made, how this decision was reached. So it's not you only can consume the decision itself, which sometimes is enough, but in case you want to read up on it, you always have this opportunity, which is really nice. People keep asking me, oh, but what about meetings? Of course, we have meetings too. It's not that everything works just through emails and GitHub issues. We do have meetings, and there are many different meetings. And I think the most common ones are team-specific meetings. Like I meet my team once a week on Thursday for an hour. We discuss all the things, and before and after the meeting, we often communicate via email. Sometimes we hop on Zoom, a video chat to discuss quickly something we couldn't figure out quickly over email to make it more efficient. There are also teams which are distributed across the globe. So my team is Europe and US, which makes it kind of easy. But if you distribute across the globe, actually what these teams do about team-specific meetings, they iterate between time zones. So sometimes it's friendly for Europe, sometimes for the US, sometimes for Asia Pacific. So naturally, not all of them are going to be in the meetings all the time. We always record meetings so people can catch up. But there's also the part about meeting humans, meeting people in 3D. And we do that twice a year. Actually, all of the engineering and even the whole company now comes together once a year, engineering twice a year, to meet in person, to sometimes discuss topic, which couldn't be discussed that easily on Zoom. I think there are very few of these topics, but it actually helps to be in the same time zone for just a week. And for me, the more important part on coming together in person is actually having the whole social interaction. Talk about the family, talk about hobbies, have a beer together, have dinner together. That is almost more important than actually the technical discussions for me, because in the end, if you know a person a bit better, it's going to make collaboration much easier. You know the pain points and so on. Sometimes just working from home is lonely. We have so-called always-on channels. That is a Zoom call. Everyone can join wherever he wants. It's like meeting at the coffee machine, have a chat. You can always jump in there and have a conversation. And we also have these big ad hoc, I mean, it's planned, but for example, release party. 6.0 was a massive release. So we had this always on channel where people chimed in across the globe to just celebrate this big release. We have recurring common company meetings like bug pool where we discuss major bugs across the stack, Fixes Friday, and so on. So we have meetings, but obviously not everyone can always join. So we always record. This is Alex from the Kibana team on the product side. That was our celebration for the 6.0 release, just to give you an impression. Or that was us in Berlin at the engineering all hands, the whole company coming together. Yeah, you see back then the company was quite a bit smaller than the 1,600. We've grown quite a bit, but just to give you an image of how it looks when a company comes together. I also get asked, what about process? You must have a lot of processes being so distributed that everyone follows along. We actually have very little processes. And one of the, when you think about processes, I think from an engineering perspective, obviously there are other parts, sales, marketing, that all the parts work pretty differently, but engineering works a lot like an open source project. Most conversation happens in pull requests, GitHub issues. They're asynchronous because of the time zone. And that's exactly what you have in an open source project too. Obviously, we do more planning and on the back about releases, when releases are going to happen, what we want to put on the roadmap. But that's actually also something that sometimes happens for open source project. We have team-specific processes, how we deal with certain issues, how we structure meetings, and so on. But when you travel across, when you go across teams in Elastic, you're going to realize processes are different per team, because a team that is in the same time zone needs different process than some that is distributed across the globe, or that just kicks off a project or has a project is long running. So processes are very different, and I couldn't list like the most common ones across teams. One that is now more and more structured is, for example, hiring, onboarding, expenses, and obviously in finance about reporting and so on. We have a lot of process there too, which are given by the law, and we obviously follow this, but it's not like you join a company and get a lot of process. So now let's talk about shared values and learnings. Values of a company are always important, but I think it becomes even more important if you're distributed. You have that many different cultures, language, so because each culture has its own values, its own ideas, its own religions. So we need to have a shared ground. Our values are kind of split up from my perspective in two parts. There's the technical values from an engineering perspective, but we also have the more soft values across the company that everyone shares. So let me talk first about the technical values. One of the most important documents for technical values from my perspective is our development constitution. It's called the Elasticsearch Team Development Constitution. And it was created over the years by the Elasticsearch team. But when you look at it, you're going to realize it's not very specific to Elasticsearch. It's actually very specific to software engineering on how we do it as a company. And I think you can take that one-on-one to another company. You're going to need to make small adjustments. But it has simple things in it, like progress over perfection, which makes sure we as a company and as an engineer, we keep moving. We rather get a feature out than actually iterate on it for 2 years before publishing it. There are things inside like design for today. So don't try to think of the million edge cases you can hit in the future. So use abstraction with care. Only use it if you really have it. Or things like remove first, fix later. So if you can't figure out the solution yet, be okay with removing it first because it's broken and reintroduce it later. So that's going to remove a lot of burden. I recommend everyone coming from the engineering field to actually go through this constitution and check what applies to your company. What can you take out of it? There's much more than what I just listed in here, but I wanted to list some examples. And there are the people values. We have a shared source code. It's actually published on our website, and it's what we show everyone that applies to the company, what we want to do. And actually one value in there is, one point in there is, it depends. And I think also for that values on how you apply it, it depends. It depends on where you live, how you work. But there is a basic idea behind it. There are simple things like be kind, don't be an asshole. It's a very obvious one, but whoever you meet, be a community, be your coworker, be your customer, always be kind. And one thing that struck me is empathy for passion. Many people working at Elastic actually joined the company from doing it as a side hobby, like contributing to Elasticsearch, Logstash, Beats, to joining the company to do it full time. The reason we did it in our side time is, in our free time, is because we're really passionate about the product. And that often shows in meetings. Like, you have a very strong opinion. That's actually a good thing, but sometimes you need to step back and figure out what is actually passion and what is the actual fact. So sometimes meetings get heated. That can happen because of the passion, but you also must have the ability to step back and actually tell others, hey, it's good, let's move on. And in a distributed company, abusive comments can happen. They shouldn't, and we have a system in place to report it. So it's like in any other company. It's not accepted to leave abusive comments. I think that must be enforced even more probably in a distributed company, because it's much more hidden, all the communication, than when you have this chit chat at the coffee table or similar. So now let's talk a bit about a day of an Elastician. It's basically my day, and you're gonna see it's actually the way I structure my day is kind of surprising. Normally, when people describe their work day, it's about when they do emails, when they do meetings. Obviously, I have some kind of structure in that, but my day is actually I wake up with the family, I have lunch with the family, and I have dinner with the family. And that's something I really enjoy because I see my kids in the morning during lunchtime when they come home from kindergarten or school, and I'm there when they come back home again for dinner. I'm there to bring them to bed. So actually, my work day is structured around my kids and my family. It obviously means I'm available also at other times, often in meeting in the evening because part of my team is in the US. So for me, that's 6 to 9 hours difference. But having the flexibility to actually organize my day around my family is very powerful for me and is much more valuable than just saying, okay, my day is structured from 9 to 5 and I don't have to worry about anything besides. Obviously, that's a choice I made. Others structure it differently. They say, okay, I come online at 8, go back offline at 5. But Elastic offers that flexibility to make every person's decision. There are meetings that are important that you need to attend, which sometimes break that system. That's okay. But in general, Elastic allows me to do that. Elastic itself is also very flexible related to family. For example, something unheard in Switzerland, they offer 4 months of paternity leave. I still, for example, have Fridays off where I take care of the kids because my wife went back to work after our third kid is just 6 months old. So yeah, my experience is really I organize my work day around my family. And the common question, oh, do you work enough? I definitely do. And I think having distributed nature is more, and this flexibility more is going to more geared towards you're going to work more than less, especially if you enjoy it. But actually, that's a good thing for me. So I enjoy working more if I get this flexibility. So beside my work day, my work is asynchronous, most of it except the meetings. So I spend a lot of time on GitHub issue, emails, in general, pull requests. So I don't block my team, they don't block me. I work in many issues in parallel, so it's rare that you're going to focus on a single thing for a week. It happens, but in general, you're going to get blocked in the middle of the day by something else, so you're going to continue on another topic. Being from home is also like nobody's in the office is going to control you. So in general, you need to do the right thing. You're going to make a lot of choices. You're going to make a lot of decisions on your own. So you're asked to do the right thing. Also, there are a lot of things that come up, like you want to attend that conference, you're going to want to present something there, who can take off over that work. And pretty often it asks for volunteers, so you need to volunteer. It sometimes happens that you're voluntold to do something, but that is rare. One thing to get used to is communication is open, and there are two parts of open across the company and open across the globe. And as we work in open source, most things I do on a daily basis in GitHub issues is actually public to everyone. Everyone can attend. And that needs to get used to. And the other part is if you do communication inside the company, it's normally on a mailing list. So you also need to get used to that if you answer to a thread, 100, 1,000 people could see it. But that's actually a good thing because everyone can participate in decisions. About time zones are a reality. So, and you need to share the pain. As I said, I organize my work day around my family. Sometimes meeting come in the middle, that's fine. They are late in the evening sometimes, that's fine. You need to share the pain of the time zones. Very often it benefits me because I'm kind of in the middle between Europe and Asia. But yeah, late night meetings or early morning meeting happens. About cultures, language, communication can fail. And I think communication is the hardest part, at least for me. There are different cultures, different language. Sometimes you just need to hop on Zoom on a video call to clarify things, because as it's not always our native language, sometimes things are misunderstood. And that what comes into play also here, never assume malice. Even if you see a phrase and like, what does this person really mean that? In most cases, the answer is no. It was just misphrased. Different language have different meaning for things. And what I talked about before, sometimes decisions take time, which is fine. There are also things you need to be aware of. Working from home full-time is not for everyone. You can spend a lot of time just on your own. I enjoy that because it makes me very productive at work. I can work on the things very focused, not having interruption. I close down Slack, email, everything when I really want to focus. Nobody can reach me. But you're going to be alone, so be aware of that. We as a company also offer for people that cannot work from home or prefer to work from a co-working space. They can do that. And the other thing you need to be aware, you potentially meet your co-workers only twice a year in person. You're going to meet them much more often on Zoom, on video calls. But meeting a person in person is actually very different from meeting on Zoom. So you get to know people well over Zoom, but there is no replacement to really meet together in one place. What I personally do to also get out, meet people, meet community, customers, contributors, is I organize meetups in Switzerland, and I really enjoy that because it gives me the opportunity to go out, really talk to people in person, hear their story around Elastic, on how they work with it. So that's my way of kind of doing, and I think every person at Elastic needs to find his way. So tooling, what kind of tools do we use? I split up tools in two parts. There's the asynchronous tools and the synchronous tools. And for me, the more critical tools are the asynchronous one. There are many more tools than I have on that list, but I would say the ones on the list are the ones shared across the whole company. And the most important one is probably email, because most decisions, internal decisions, happen on email or on GitHub. So if you want to look up what happened, if it didn't happen on email or GitHub, I often say it didn't happen. So if decisions are made on Slack, send out an email to a mailing list to make sure everyone is aware of it. If GitHub or email is down, I think our company kind of stops working for a bit. And the third one, we have files, we have presentations, we have many other like recordings that happens on Google Drive. For the synchronous one, we at the moment use Zoom to do video calls, like just that meeting here. We use Slack, immediate communication. Slack is really useful, but I can just reiterate. If you make a decision, we make it on GitHub or email. There are also many team-specific tools for design, for finance, for you name it. There are many more tools in it, but I would say the ones here are the most critical ones for engineering. One thing when you join Elastic is you're going to get an overload of emails because everything is public inside the company, or most of the things is you need to get your email filters straight. You're gonna be able to subscribe to build status and many other things. So that is just an example of an email filter that some people use to filter out the things that are relevant for them. So in general, we rather over communicate than under communicate, because that means everyone is included. So we rather include too many than too few people in decisions and communication. So how does hiring and onboarding work for the company? So just an overview on hiring. For us, age, gender, location, race, it's just an attribute. It's not a criteria. We review about 30,000 CVs per quarter, probably by now, many more. Just an indicator on the engineering side, we had about 130 arrivals, 90 departures. Most people I joined with the company are still around. And on the growth of the company, you see the numbers. We keep accelerating in growing. In general, around hiring is, do we invite people to an office for hiring? On the engineering side, we definitely don't. So all the interviews are Zoom. You never meet people. So some people that immediately join after an all hands, you're going to see the first time 6 months later at an all hands in person. And about onboarding, how do we onboard new members? We have the thing called X School. We fly in people actually to Mountain View, San Francisco, to meet across the company, to kind of be together for a week, to learn about the company, to meet people across the company. So sales meets engineering, meets finance, all the different departments are mixed together. We use Workday with kind of onboarding processes to how do you get your laptop, how do you get your salary payments, set up your bank bank ID and this kind of stuff to get payments. But there are also a lot of team specific things again. So how a team onboards its members is very specific. This is an example of X School a few years back. By now it has grown even further, but yeah, there are people that just joined the company a few years back in Mountain View. So on the conclusion from my side, I personally cannot go back to an office. It's like, for me, it's so many benefits working from home. In a distributed company, I don't spend time in public transport or in the car. I can spend the time with my family and friends. I can work very focused with very little interruptions. But I want to emphasize, you need to be the person to work full-time from home. And we as a company, Elastic offers co-working space. If you're close to an office, you can also work from an office. I personally really enjoy the way I work at the moment. I hope I managed to give you kind of an overview on how our company works, especially on the engineering side. Yeah, and that's it from my side. I'm gonna jump to the Q&A section. Please post there your questions. Let me pull that up, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Okay, please a reminder, if you have questions, please put them directly in the Q&A section. There's one question, I'm going to read it out and hopefully can answer it directly. So the first question from Martin, sorry if I pronounce your name not correctly, is how does Elastic handle the infrastructure side of running a business? Are your laptops and machines centrally controlled and locked down? If not, how do you prevent viruses, etc., from getting into your system, shared documents, source code, etc.? So we have a few tools on our laptops by now. Historically, we didn't have any tools, so many people use their own laptop. We acquired a few months back a company called Endgame, and actually we use our own tool to kind of detect intrusions on our laptops. It's the endpoint, you can download and use it yourself, which detects, is something going wrong. About leaking source code and other things, the beauty of it is almost all our source code is public, so you cannot leak it. About the lockdown, engineers still have full admin access on their laptops. I can basically do almost anything I want on my laptop, because I think I also have to, as an engineer, to tune it to my needs. I think as the company grows, we get more into the security space and have more critical things on our laptop. Things change a bit. Also, for example, a person working on the cloud and having access to the cloud has different requirements on authentication and all the things than I have, which I don't have access to customers and so on. So the criteria are different across the company, but engineering laptops are definitely not locked down. perhaps on the infrastructure side of running the business, not related to the laptops, we heavily rely on the cloud tools like Google Drive and so on, but we have big GCP and AWS infrastructure that every engineer can spin up instance if he needs it for testing, for things to run some scripts he can't do on his laptop. So also our workload is almost all of it in the cloud. Okay, so I hope that partially answered the question. Otherwise, please follow up with a question. Happy to answer there. So there is a second question from Amit, and it is, what is the most important quality you look when hiring engineers, and advice for some who has never done remote work and wanted to work remotely with Elastic? That's a tough one. Someone that has never worked for remotely, I think it's hard to judge if someone can or not. And sorry, remotely, I really mean distributed. So work full-time from home. And I would rather point it to the employee to ask yourself, are you going to be able to organize you all the day long on your own? Are you going to get lonely? Like, did you do in the past? Like, did you have your own company? Then I would say you're totally able to work on your own. Did you, for example, how did you work in university? Did you go to a library to actually get your work done, or did you work from home? So I think there are a lot of indicators you can ask, but honestly, as soon as someone starts working, I think it shows very quickly. Is the person lost? And we have people joining, and we're like, after a few weeks, like, nobody told me what to do exactly, and that's probably true. So it's also a lot of pressure indirectly on the employee to really take initiative and drive things forward. So it's more reading between the line when you look for hiring engineers that work from home than actually a very specific question I could tell you, is it going to work or is it not? Okay, we have a question here without the name. Let me answer that. How do you keep track of your assignments and due dates and your team or the people you work with? The simplest answer is we don't, but that's not accurate. I think it's changing. So what my team uses, for example, is Soup, which is linked into GitHub. We don't necessarily assign timelines and deadlines to everything. We have rolling releases, so if something doesn't make it, it slips. At the same time, we keep growing as a company. We have more and more cross-team efforts that one team depends on the other. So the PMs, our product managers, and the team leads really keep track on, are we on track with the dependency with other teams? But I must confess, it's also a thing we struggle with, and we put more and more processes or tools in place to keep up with it. So on my end, for my team, Soup, we check in on a weekly basis how things are progressing. We kind of use a Soup board. We just say, hey, these things are ready to work in. We check in the next week. People quickly report on blockers, what they're working on. But it's not that we assign direct deadlines to a task. It's more like, hey, we have a goal. We want to hit that release with that feature. And we want to figure out as early as possible that we're not going to hit it. Hope that partially answers your question. So let me see, there are also some, oh, that's a language I don't understand in the chat. So yes, so I'll give 1 or 2 more minutes to ask more Q&A questions in the chat. I think I also have the opportunity, if someone raises his hands or comments, he wants to speak up directly, I think I can allow you to talk directly. More than happy to do that. Okay, we got some more question coming in. Thanks. So the first one is how you organize your time to work as you work from home. Very good question. So my time is organized again around my family. So my smallest one leaves, my oldest one leaves around 8:30 latest to kindergarten. So my work time is between 8:30 and 12 or 11:30 if I cook lunch for him. So that's basically a fixed session. And the afternoon is 1 to 5 again. So that is really my work time. I often come online in the evening again. Do I track how many hours of work? I don't. I definitely work. I think in Switzerland, my contract says 42 hours. Do I work more hours? Yeah, definitely I do. But there are weeks and days I work less. One of the kids is sick, or I have to doctor appointments. So I don't organize it strictly. At the same time, I have my private to-do list with things I want to get done on a specific day to unblock others. But I don't track it at all. I know some people do, and I think it's helpful if you feel like you work way too much or you feel like you don't set the priorities right. I recommend you to plan your day. So my plan happens often ad hoc, but as I'm also leading kind of a team, I'm also driven a lot by my team members, which I block to unblock them. Okay, then we have a question from Amit. Again, about what is the most important quality you look when hiring engineers. Yeah. I mean, the one is really they need to be a good engineer. So it's not that they know in detail like the things we work on, but when the thing they worked on, they really need to understand and need to be able to argue why they made decisions. So they need to be able to dive into new technologies, into new ideas, drive things forward, fully understand them, and make trade-offs. That is one. And the other one, which is not engineering at all, they need to be able to communicate well. And that becomes especially important for distributed companies. Like if you write an email, you need to be very specific what is important, what not. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of time getting back to you a day later to ask a detail that you missed in your emails. It's going to consume time for everyone. So being a good engineer, meaning you understand the technologies, you can argue around the technology, you can make decisions, you can work, push projects forward on your own pace. Communication is very important. I hope I answered it a bit better this time, Amit, but really, I think it's a really tricky question because it depends on the position. It depends, like a tech lead has very different criteria from just an engineer that needs to implement a very specific feature. Okay, there is one more question on, can you go back to work from office? If I have to, yes. I prefer not to. Actually, Elastic is my first employer. I always was running my own business before. I worked from an office. I built my own company in an office. But honestly, I prefer so much working from home, especially now that I have family. But perhaps in 4 years, 3 years, things look differently. I'm fed up with working from home and I really want to go in an office again, but I struggle to see it. So it's just so much time saved on not having to commute, which saves me like 1 to 2 hours a day. It's just great. It has downsides working from home. Like one thing that I sometimes struggle with is I stop working immediately. Family comes after its kids come in, which is great. At the same time, I don't have the time to kind of cool off just 5 minutes for myself, but it's a trade-off I'm more than happy to take. Good. Let's give again 1 or 2 more minutes for more questions to come in. You can also always reach out to me afterwards on Twitter, ping me there to ask more questions. Happy to share it there if I missed something. Okay, we have. What are the benefits for engineers in Elastic? So I think there are two parts from benefits, and it depends on countries and where you are. I think when you go to an office or close to an office, you, for example, get lunch there, but there are other benefits. For example, you get stock options when you join the company. I think we pay pretty well salaries. You get VTO, volunteering time off. What other benefits we get? Here in Switzerland, you get a bit of benefits on your health insurance, and I think that's very different per country on what benefits you get. For me, the biggest benefit is really getting flexibility. So the salary is, it needs to be good enough, but if the salary is good enough, I think the flexibility I get is actually, for me, much more valuable than getting the highest salary or the highest stock options. Check out our website on the careers page about the benefits in your country that you're in. I think we listed on the website the benefits you get. I'm sorry that I cannot answer it for each country. It's pretty specific. But in general, I think we have a good benefits package. Okay, I would say if no more question comes in, we're gonna wrap it up here. I really appreciate. Oh, okay. One more question on the side. Are there any R&D center in Elastic? There are many. My home office is one. So any office we have, let's say Amsterdam, Berlin, I think Paris has an office. All of them are R&D centers, sales. So it's not like we build an office for having an R&D center. It's an office that everyone can come who wants. I would say engineers are more likely to work from home than, for example, sales travels anyways a lot. So there's no R&D center. It's really a distributed R&D on the global level. Okay, let me try to wrap up again. Thank you very much for joining that virtual meetup. Hope you enjoyed it. If there is a question sent out afterwards, please help respond there, give feedback. Was it good? Was it bad? Yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is in your time zone. Thanks. Hope to see you one day in person.